Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to this video. So again, it's been another week or so since I last did a video, but just to let you know, I am still hobbying quite intently at the moment, mainly focusing on terrain. One of the big things of 8th edition, I'm sure I've mentioned it before on the channel, is line of sight, and terrain is key in 8th edition. So I'm trying to get my tabletop a little bit more up to standard, a little bit more balanced, a little bit better for 8th edition games. So this video, I'm going to be looking at two kits in particular, and the key word here is thermic. So the first one we are looking at is right here, and that is the Thermic Power Conduit, which is basically some cool pipe work with some glowy effect on it. And to go with that is the Thermic Plasma Regulators, which are sort of mini towers channeling thermal energy stuff. So that's what the video is going to be about today. I'm going to be unboxing those two and showing you what happens and what they look like. And there's one small gotcha that's missing in the instructions, and I'll point that out in the video. It's not a difficult gotcha, but it, for one particular reason, doesn't appear in the instructions, which is fantastic. So enough for me. Let's get on with the video. So here we go then, guys. This is the Thermic Plasma Regulators and Thermic Plasma Conduits. This new terrain is pretty good. It's very detailed. It's not a bad price in my opinion, especially if you can find a friendly local gaming store that does a little bit of discount. It's always nice. But these are the two kits here going on. So the first one I'm going to look at is the Regulators. So inside this, let's just get the cellophane off. The light in my little studio here does sort of reflect off these cellophane. But once the cellophane's off, the picture does clear up quite nicely. But don't panic, any of the boring bits I will be putting the video on a little bit fast forward so that you haven't got to worry about me chopping bits out. The first thing you obviously get is the instruction book that comes with this. It's a very short little pamphlet just showing you all the components. There aren't that many components in it. So you've got two halves of the two towers, then you've got four smaller sections which just glue onto those, and then you've got two platforms and two barricades. So here we go, so you've got just two sprues in the entire kit. And as you can see, the components are pretty big and chunky. And one of the big things about all this new terrain, it goes really well with Necromunda, it goes really well with Warhammer 40k, and all the kits, as far as I'm aware so far, 100% interchangeable. So you can build some really cool looking giant bits of terrain, or you can have it scattered all over the place and represent something a bit smaller if your budget's a bit tighter. So in my opinion, pretty good value. Okay, it's not as cheap as you can get for this laser cut terrain that is doing the rounds at the moment. That's very popular. But for me, this, you know, all the skulls and all the scale and everything fits perfectly for my needs. So just getting the tools out then, I've got my scalpel or X-Acto blade, I've got some plastic glue and some clippers, and just gonna chop all the pieces out. It's nice and simple, and I'll just fast forward this to save you the boredom. This is the total set of the pieces then. So you've got the four sort of towers. You notice there's a couple of different sides going on here. One's vented and one's not, and so on. Doesn't really matter. They both go together either way that you like. And nice and simple. So there's no bits to go inside or anything to worry about here. It's just two straight halves, and you just run a little bit of bead of glue around each of the bits and then just press and hold them together. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing here. Once again, I'm obviously going to start fast forwarding some of this. I'm sure you know how to use glue. Now these four little pieces here that you can just about make out, I'm just cleaning them up here, they're sort of, I think they're sort of power cords or some kind of little added detail. and on the side of those big plasma relay parts there are two little square notches, and they just fit into there, and this is the part that's missing from the instructions. So before you throw your sprues away, make sure that you've cut these 4 little pieces out, otherwise you've got 4 little unwanted holes in the side of your terrain. Not overly detailed, you know, they're not gonna make or break your game, but just make sure that you cut these little pieces out and stick them on. Otherwise, yeah, as I said, you're going to end up with those little holes, and you'll be very annoyed when you're throwing the sprues away. So I'm going to show you here where these little points are, just pointing them out there. You can see those that little square right there on the end of the X-Acto blade there. All I'm going to do is just blob a little bit of glue in there and just fill those holes with those 4 little parts, and there's 2 on each to do. So yeah, as I said, just make sure you don't throw your sprues away before thoroughly checking to make sure those little pieces are cut out. So once we've done the main bit of assembly, I'm just going to test fit these little platforms. So these platforms are keyed and do fit kind of very snugly against the tower there. You can't really use them anywhere else in any of the interchangeable terrain. I mean, well, you could, but it's far better to put them onto these little towers here, as there's a whole bunch of missing detail if you don't do it. So that's exactly how they go. You noticed I haven't cleaned up any of the sprues at this stage. I'm just test fitting, and it's nice and easy to do. Just make sure that I'm happy with how it all bolts together. The little barricades can go on any of the sides, because you can put these things, you know, as I've got them lined up there, so left to right, or you can make something a bit more monstrous with other parts. But this is kind of how it comes in the box, that you put the 2 halves together like that. Gives a nice little platform that you can get about 5 models on if you squeeze them right, depending on the size of the base. Obviously, if they're the new Primaris, you know, at 32mm, or they're Terminators, whatever, you're only going to get a couple up there. But that's fine. So because it's all interchangeable with everything else, you can extend these parts and do whatever you like, really. And I'm going to be playing around with that in a future video. So I'm just checking for scale here, just so you guys can see. Here's a standard 30k Marine, actually part of my Imperial Fist collection. So just lining them up there, you can see that these towers are sort of 2.5, 3 times the height of Marine, and maybe 5 or 6 widths if you laid him on his side. So you can just see sort of how big these components are. It's always a bit difficult, even because you don't know how big my hands are, for example, or whether that's inches or centimeters on my cutting mat. Actually, it is centimeters. So if you wanted to pause the video and measure it yourself, feel free to do so. So there we go. That's the thermic plasma regulators for you all done. We're going to move on to the plasma conduits. You can see here you get quite a fair amount of quantity of these pipes in here. So you're going to get some duplicate sprues though. It's 4 sprues in total, and there are 2 repeats, so you get 2 identical sprues times 2. We'll just crack open the box and show you what's going on. So as before, you get an instruction manual. Now both these instruction manuals do come with rules for using the Sector Mechanicus terrain in your games. Basically means if you're cowering in the terrain of this, it is a little bit volatile, because it's, you know, it's full of power and thermal energies and so on, plasma energies, and if you're hunkering down and taking cover, basically the impact is you could take mortal wounds for being a coward and hiding in that terrain. So let's have a look at the sprues then. So as I said, we've got 2 identical sprues on the left, which are most of the pipes, and then on the right we've got the curved sections and a sort of power bank kind of thing. So you can see you've got sort of 6 halves of the long sections there, which makes 3 pipes, which means you've got a total of 6 pipes in the collection. Then you have a couple of U-bends or 90 degrees, and then you've got a couple of ones that go a bit further round than that. Then they've all got legs as well, so you can actually mount these on a board, and that sets them up for a nice height for interchanging and connecting them to other bits of terrain as well. To save you the boredom of watching me cut all these out, what I've done is actually assembled a set fully here and primed them black, which is why there's spray all over my fingers. So you can see you've got 6 sections of pipe, so you're going to get three pairs in effect, so they're going to be built exactly the same. Then you've got 12 legs. you've got two sort of broken end pieces of pipe, two short sections of pipe, then you've got those two little elbow corners there, and then you've got those other sections, can't even describe those, they're sort of double elbows almost really, so they're going to give you a slightly different angle on your assembly. You can see those little legs just sort of pop on underneath. They are sort of keyed, so they do sort of clip in a little bit, so you can get the heights all correct and so on if you wanted to use those. And once you do that, you can see that they just all line up nice and easy against each other. And I'm just going to go through you know, a sample section here of putting this together, just to show how easy it is. There we go. I've just set this up in any kind of random order really, just so you can see the sort of quantity you get in there, and just showing you some of the dimensions really. Each of the longer sections of pipe is 5 inches in length, so if you want to play around with your boards and so on, I'm probably going to be mounting these on 12 by 12 MDF boards. I'm not 100% sure yet. I'm still going to be playing around with some other bits of kit, and just to see how that all pans out. But as I said, this kit is sort of fully interchangeable, so let's have a look at how that works. I've gone ahead and primed and cleaned up my thermic regulators as well, just to show you how they go once they're all cleaned up and looking black and primed. Still not convinced of how I'm going to be painting these yet. I'm going to be painting quite a lot of this terrain, so I want to make sure that it is colour coordinated and looks good rather than individual sets. But you can see here the pipe work just goes nice and easy, and is the right height and everything else to link up with all the vents and outputs and inputs that you can get on this kit, or these two kits for example. There are a whole bunch of other kits in the Sector Mechanicus terrain range, and this all goes together all nice and easy as well with everything else, which is almost like they planned it. So you can put these whichever way around you like, and you can have them all over the place. It's not rocket science, I'm sure you can have a play. A lot of people are going to magnetise this as well. One of the things that I'm looking at is potentially magnetising. There's a couple of ways of doing this. You can either magnetise as you build, so you can actually hide the magnets inside the actual plastic before you glue the halves together. If you put them towards sort of where the vents are on either end, and where any side vents and so on, you can hide a magnet behind there. Or, as I may do, is just drill into the very ends and put in some small magnets at the very end, so they will be visible until you clip them together. So there's nothing stopping you doing either method really. Just depends on whether you're a complete perfectionist or you're worried about any kind of magnet sort of showing. One of the big things to worry about obviously is polarity, and making sure that everything is fully connectable to everything else. So you really have to think about your north and south magnet polarity when it comes to that. I may magnetise some sections, I may not magnetise everything, so I do have a fairly good amount of storage space, so I don't need to sort of strip it down completely, and I can just store it in crates. But there you go, that's the two kits all laid out for you right there on the screen. So there we go then guys, that's 2 boxes unboxed for you, and a little bit of a review and showing you how it all sort of bolts together. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something there. If you haven't played around with this kit before and you're thinking about buying it, I do recommend it. I'm a big fan of this kind of terrain. I think it's very good, very detailed, easy to put together, looks fabulous on a tabletop, and I can't wait to start painting it. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you on the next one.